One person's mental health challenges can impact their entire family. When it takes the support of a family to help people succeed and live thriving lives. We're going to take a look at that topic today on our Hear Me, See Me podcast with one family who's willing to share their story with us. Hear Me, See Me is a mental health awareness initiative of us here at WIBW TV based in Topeka, Kansas. I'm Melissa Bruner, and I'm joined today by Madison Schmitt and her father, David Schmitt. Mental health advocates, mental wellness warriors, I like to call you. Thank you both, first of all, so much for being here. Because sometimes it can be a little hard to talk about yourselves, but I think in having you all share your story is going to help a lot of folks out there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite the honor to get to do this, especially because I feel like a lot of people who have serious mental illnesses do not have the ability to go out and speak about it with any sort of confidence. So if I can be sort of a voice to start that conversation for someone, that's quite the honor to get to do.
Well, I appreciate you, and I'm honored to have you sharing your story here. So let's start with you, Madison, because you're where this journey begins for everybody. Take us back. You were telling me you turned 30 this year.
Yes.
I'm excited for you to do that. But where does this story begin? How long ago are we talking that something started going on?
So I was about 16 years old. It was halfway through my junior year of high school at Topeka High School. And I just started having these overwhelming sense of dread. I would go to school, I'd make it to about third hour, and I'd call my mom going, "Mom, I made myself sick, I need to come home, can you please call me out?" And that's where my dad was saying that it was sort of they were wondering, teenage angst, you know, this isn't really usual, but maybe she's going through a phase. I ended up coming home from school every day, laying on our couch. I didn't even go to my bedroom. I was too exhausted and downtrodden to even get to my room. And I laid on the couch and I would fall asleep, and I'd sleep there until the next day when I did it all over again in the morning.
Was that different from how you had lived before?
Oh, yes. Definitely.
Tell me about the old Madison. What was the old Madison doing in the preteen years?
Old Madison was on the debate team. I was in a couple of different choirs. Those were my favorite activities to go do in high school. So I was at school until maybe 6, 7 o'clock at night. Then I would come home, eat dinner with my family, play some video games online, and then go to bed about 10 o'clock. So it was a very stark difference, and it came on very suddenly.
I was going to ask, was this something you knew was a change in you, or?
I couldn't see it because it was my first time ever going through it, but my mother was very good about going, this isn't the right routine that we've got going here. She ended up, I think, making the decision that I needed some additional help. It's a funny story now, but it wasn't back then. I ended up dropping a spoon on the floor, and I think I cried for a solid 20 minutes because I was just so upset about everything. And
it wasn't the spoon on the floor.
It wasn't the spoon. It was maybe a little the spoon on the floor. But there was also just so much more that I was mad that I couldn't go to school. I didn't understand why I was feeling like this. I didn't understand why I was tired, why I was so sad all the time. And finally, we made the decision to go to Family Service and Guidance Center, which is now Astra, and they ended up diagnosing me with major depressive disorder.
Was that shocking for you? Did you get that word, did you hear those words and think to yourself, nothing happened that I should be depressed about, or did something happen that in retrospect you felt you should be depressed about?
No, absolutely nothing happened. And that's the biggest question that I get when I go and talk about these things is, what happened to you? What made you depressed? And I said, nothing. My brain just decided that it wasn't going to make the chemicals that I needed to be happy anymore. So I needed some additional help with that. We ended up getting me on a couple of different medications and moving forward with that. And it took a while to get everything right. Medication is always trial and error. But once we finally got things right, I felt really good about myself again. I could go do debate tournaments on the weekends. I could stay until 8 o'clock at night at the school doing my research. And it was really nice to feel like I had that sort of spark back, but it was never really the same as it was before. I always knew there's this demon that's kind of looming behind me that could grasp me at any time. And I really needed to be cognizant about that going forward.
Did it rear its ugly head back again?
Absolutely, it did.
So before we get into that part, let's turn to your dad a little bit here, because when she's 16, she's laying on the couch. I mean, part of it sounds to me like exactly what Madison was saying. Is this really typical teenage behavior? You know, some teens get like that.
Right.
We're just going to lay around. We're not going to do anything. I probably went through that phase as well. Maybe from time to time I still do. But what were you thinking when you see Madison go from someone who, as she said, was go, go, go for those extended days to all of a sudden coming home and just laying down right away?
You know, it was a big change because you have this young woman who is exuberant and ready to go to school and wanted to participate and do well. You know, she would come home and she'd bounce around the house singing songs, and it's not there anymore. So it caused us some pause in that moment. What is going on? And thankfully, like she said, Mom was watching enough and says, hey, this is not right. Let's start doing some looking. And we found those resources. And like Maddie said, we got her on medications and we trial and error, found some that worked. But the thing we've realized as we go through this is the medicines don't work all the time, every time, long term even. And so we've gone through several different med cycles and worked through that. And we've watched her kind of regress and then blossom again. And even to this day, we still go through some of those struggles, but we have to realize that we have to give her that support and make sure she has the things she needs to function adequately.
In the beginning, though, was there a point where at first you were saying to yourselves, oh my gosh, get over it, get up, get out the door, and just think like she should be able to do that?
Yeah, initially, yeah, definitely. We were like, is this boy trouble? You know, is somebody bullying you at school? Because there had been some history of bullying in previous schools. And we want to make sure it wasn't something like that. And we couldn't find anything that indicated this is the cause or this is why she's pretending, so to speak. But, you know, as time progressed, we realized she's not pretending. This is real, and we've got to do something about it.
And to be clear, even those minor things do impact a young person's mental health and wellness and should be addressed and spoken about. Was it tough for you to bring this up with Maddie when you were seeing her go through it?
Not so much, because I think Maddie was ready to help herself. All through this, she has been her biggest advocate. I mean, as much as her mother and I advocate for her and Mimi advocates for her, she is her best own advocate. And we tell people in the mental health world, you're your best advocate. We can't advocate for you effectively if we don't know where you're at and if you're not willing to advocate for yourself. It's like anybody that struggles with addictions or anything like that. Until they're ready to help themselves, you can't force them into that help. And so it's been great that she's been on board for it and been willing to go through these steps and to continue to go through them.
Madison, how long was that first up and down cycle? I mean, the first down cycle, how long did it take before you found yourself crying over the spoon? And then how long did it take to get that first boost from the medication and get it kind of settled for you?
Somewhere around 3 to 4 months.
Okay, so that seems pretty quick.
It was very quick. I think we got very lucky because I had never been on mental health medication before. I didn't have all the tolerance issues. That's one of the biggest issues that I have with my medication cycle currently is you take a medicine and it stops working as well. So you have to up your dosage. So then you have to take some more and then you need to take more. And eventually you get to the top of that dosage and you have to switch and find something else that works for you in the interim.
Okay, so within a matter of months, you notice this isn't right. Mom and Dad notice this isn't right. You get help. You do your trial and error with the medication. How long were things okay, and then what happened?
Things were okay for about 3 years. My freshman year of college, I actually had my first mania episode. So I was diagnosed originally with major depressive disorder, but in college, they ended up giving me a diagnosis of bipolar type 2. So that causes me to go really high highs and really low lows. And my first highs was in college. I literally, kid you not, woke up one day and was like, I'm an adult. I am the greatest person who ever lived. I can do this without medication. And I stopped every single medication I was on cold turkey. And that's
Not a good
when-
idea.
No. I started getting in with a really bad crowd. That was when my first struggles with addiction started. I started smoking cigarettes. I was drinking underage. I was smoking marijuana to get myself through classes during the day. And I ended up going from above a 4.0 average to about a 2.3.
In college, this was happening. Describe some of the lows. What were those like?
The lows were a lot of, I feel like I don't have energy. It's hard to get out of bed. I break down tasks into everything I have to do. So even something as simple as showering was tough for me because I had to think about finding my clothes, turning on the water, washing my body, washing my face, washing my hair. And all of that just became so overwhelming that I just didn't do any of it at all. I definitely struggled from lack of energy, from the just general, everything was sad. I could be having the greatest day of my life and I would still be crying.
Were you living at home during those college years, or were you away from home when all this was going on?
I was away from home, so my parents were not there to go, whoa, this is really out of character for you.
And did you realize it was out of character for you at the time?
I was getting some mental health help, but I think because of my mania episode, I was so I'm on top of the world that I thought everyone else was just trying to push me down. I was like, no, you guys are just exaggerating. I am totally fine. And it was because I was sick that I couldn't see that I was sick.
So what happened that finally got you back on a stable ground again?
I got arrested. I got arrested for a paraphernalia charge and almost intent to sell, because I was so on top of the world. I thought that I was above the law, that I could do anything. And when I came home for my summer, I told my parents, I don't think I want to go back there because I'm scared if I go back to that college and live on campus again, that I'm not going to be able to stay out of that bad crowd.
So when you got arrested, did you call Dad?
I did not. I was terrified. I did not tell my parents for the longest time until I think I finally came home, and it was this long, tearful admission after I'd gotten a call from the lawyers saying, hey, we need you here for this hearing at this time. That was finally when my tearful admission came out, and I was like, Mom, I need help. Dad, I need help.
And this is where you finally then asked for help to get back on ground. When you hear all of this, were you guys at home going, everything's great, I'm so proud of her, look how far she's come, she's in college and doing fine, with no idea all this is going on?
Yeah, definitely. We had gone down. She had helped on the play Man of La Mancha down there, and so she wanted us to come down and see this musical. And we sat there, and everything seemed great. Showed us her dorm room around campus. Everything was great. So to hear this after the fact that this had happened, yeah, it was a shock. You just don't know. But out of sight, out of mind, right? We're not there every day. She's not, communicating to us this is happening. She had gotten a job down there. We thought things were going well. I think she did tell us she'd lost her job, and the story was something like, they cut hours or something along those lines. So you didn't know. So when we found out that she'd been arrested, that was quite a shock.
Wild guess here, how guilty did you feel?
Looking back, probably in that moment, a little guilty that we weren't there, but looking back, I realized that we shouldn't carry that guilt because we didn't know. When she communicated with us, the thing is, like she said, the Mania episode, she could put on a happy face. She could go about singing and carrying on, and when we're down there, everything looks like it's pristine. There's no issues. So the guilt, if there is any, is that we probably should have checked in more, but you can't look back on that and say, I should have done this, because if you could have, you would have.
And the most important thing I think to note about that is that I didn't even give them the option to be able to do that. If they would have called every single day, I would have lied because I was ashamed. I didn't want them to know that I was failing in these things. I was actually working with NAMI on campus throughout college and ended up stopping working with them just because my mental health declined so drastically. I didn't want to tell them that. And so it's really important, if there is any source of guilt, that you should know that most of the time we're afraid to tell you anyways. There wasn't a single thing that you could have asked me that would have gotten me to admit, yes, I'm in a bad spot.
So you have that relapse, I guess, for lack of a better term to put it. You admit this to your parents, get some more help. What have the highs and lows been like since then?
Highs and lows have been pretty good. Just recently, I went through a pretty low patch where my medication hit that top of the line and it stopped working. And so I turned to alcohol to numb that. I was self-medicating. And I think my parents could tell that there was a problem, but they were waiting for me to go, I can't do this anymore. So I finally got to that point where I woke up one morning with a terrible hangover, and realized I know what I'm doing and I can't do this anymore. I want to keep my job. I want to be there for my daughter. I want to remember things. I was drunk for so many events that I don't even remember what happened. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I called my mom. You always call your mom. It doesn't matter if you're 13 or 30, you're calling your mom. And I said, Mom, I need help. What do I do? And she goes, go get yourself checked into an inpatient facility, get stable, come out, go to rehab. And so that's exactly what I did. And here in December, I actually graduated from that program.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
But you mentioned something in there. You had a daughter along the way.
Yes, I did. I have an 18-month-old daughter. Her name is
Wow.
Adelaide. She is bright, spunky, a total pistol. She definitely is the reason in my life to do a lot of the things that I've done. I'm currently actually going back to college to pursue a bachelor in psychology because I would like to make what I'm doing now more of a full-time career. I want to go out and talk to people about this is what it looks like. This is how you handle people in crisis. I've done crisis intervention with the Topeka Police Department before. We'd like to get back to that, hopefully. So there's a lot of things, but she is my light and my reason for doing it all because I want to be a good mom for her.
How hard was it for you guys, David, to watch the high and low, and then what she described there, that you all kind of stood back and waited for her to come forward?
Right, because like I said before, you can't force someone to seek recovery, whether it's from addiction, whether it's from mental illness. And we kept reminding her through this, though, we would remind her, you've got Addie to look out for. That is your legacy there. And Addie is the spitting image of her mama in a lot of ways. Very demonstrative and boisterous. And we see that in Maddie. And so it was hard for us to watch, because when she was home, even after coming back from Bethel when she was down there, she came back and you would see her kind of slipping. Maddie, you haven't showered in a couple of days. Maddie, you're not putting makeup on. You've been in the same clothes. You see these things happen and you can kind of walk them through it. But again, we're not seeing her every day. We see her once a week because we pick the baby up and spend time with the baby. And you can tell the house isn't getting cleaned. You know, you're sitting there in your chair not doing anything, dishes piled up. You see signs of it. And so we would make comments like, looks like you need to take the trash out, or things like that. But you don't want to push, because if you push, they withdraw. And like she said, when she's in college, even as an adult, if you ask her, she says, no, I'm fine. Everything's good. I'm just having a down day. I don't feel well. I don't feel well is a common excuse. I just need to rest. I'm not feeling well. And certain times of year, that's great. In the middle of summer, maybe not so much. It's not, I'm feeling well. So it was hard for us to sit back and watch that, but we realized, and we talked about it after we'd leave there, did you see this? And we'd say yes, but we can't say anything. We can complain to each other, we can talk to each other about it, but we can't confront her about it until she's ready, and then she'll come to us. And she did, fortunately.
You an only child?
No, I have a younger brother and then 2 step siblings.
Oh my goodness. So there was a full house.
Oh yes, it was a full house growing up for sure.
How did that impact everyone else in the house, David, and how you were able to interact with the other kids?
Well, her brother has some of his own issues. Back then, our two younger kids were considerably younger. They were in high school, middle school when this was happening, and so they weren't seeing a lot of it. Actually, grade school, middle school when it started, they weren't seeing a lot of it. They were only with us part-time, so Maddie was able to put on a good face or had debate tournaments or whatever, so she was out of the house. But it did put a strain on the family, because you've got certain members of the family that are doing their chores, doing the things they're supposed to do, doing homework, and then you've got others, in this case Madison, who's not doing anything, and they question why doesn't she have to do this? And in some ways we made excuses for her, but I think they also were very aware of what was going on, and they were read into, this is why we do the things we do with NAMI. This is why we live the way we do. And as we've gone on, our younger children have also had their issues, and so I think they understand more now.
Well, you both have mentioned NAMI several times, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I want to get a look, more of a look at how they were able to help you and support you and guide you all through this, and the lessons. There are a lot of lessons I'm hearing here that I think a lot of folks can take away. So we're going to look at that part of the conversation in just a minute. Back on the Hear Me, See Me podcast with our guests, Madison Schmitt and her father, David Schmitt. Madison's been sharing her journey through mental health, mental wellness, and mental illness, persistent mental illness that you've lived with since you were a teenager, and how her family has been guiding her through. The first lesson I want to take a look at here is what you were saying about your journey through depression and how most people are like, well, what happened to you? I think that's a big takeaway here for others who might be thinking, well, I can't be depressed because I haven't experienced any sort of loss or trauma. What should people hear from you when it comes to depression?
Depression is strictly your brain not making the chemicals that you need to be happy. That isn't triggered by some extraneous circumstance that happened outside. It's something that's going on inside your body. So you don't need to have anything happen. Your brain, just like your car, like your refrigerator, it can just stop working one day as it's intended. And that's when you need to go through and you need to look at it and make repairs. And repairs in this case would be medication, and I also go to therapy as well.
So when all of this is happening, as you've been sharing this story, David, it's been like, okay, you guys automatically knew what to do. What a great in-tune family you are to just intuitively know exactly what Maddie was going to need and when. Was it really that easy, or what really happened?
If only.
If only.
Right? So it's like this. You're handed this big box of carpentry tools, and you've never put a nail in the wood. You don't know what the hammer's for, right? You know that you should do something with it, but you don't know how to use it. And so that was what we went through with Madison. How do we fix this? I know we've got the tools. They've got to be somewhere. How do we start? And that's where I think NAMI came to play a lot, because of what her interview with the previous director, and got us involved with NAMI.
Did you just Google them to know they were there, or how did you guys get
I'm
connected?
not even sure how Maddie even came up with the idea of interviewing Rick. So,
it was actually a paper that I was doing for AVID, Advancement via Individual Determination, in high school.
So this is before you started having the issues?
No, this was
This is
actually
during.
after.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
during it. And I ended up looking up, I was like, mental health, I've been diagnosed with this. And I started a problem and solution paper. And my problem was mental health in Topeka, Kansas. I said, there's a problem that we didn't have the understanding of these tools. And so I started doing some research, and lo and behold, one of my searches popped up NAMI, and I saw Rick Kagan's name. And so I called him up on my cell phone and I said, hey, is there any way that I'd be able to get an interview with you for my problem and solution paper for high school about mental health in Topeka, Kansas? And he said, yes, absolutely. And while I was there talking to him, he kind of let me in on the things that NAMI did, such as their family-to-family classes. We have another program that I'm certified in called Parents and Teachers as Allies. And he just kind of told us about all these classes and that everyday people go and get trained for him and put on these classes. And I looked at my mom and my dad and I said, we need to do that.
Okay, so Madison mentions, hey, I did this research for school. Maybe it can help us personally, because whoever thinks the stuff they do in school is really going to have real life implications. It actually did. Here you are. You get connected with NAMI Kansas. What happened from there?
Well, that's where, like I said, her mom went and took the class first with Mimi, because I was working a shift where I couldn't get off. To get to the class, well, my job situation changed and I was able to take the class. And so we took the class again and took the class. I'm like, wow, this stuff is really important. And then we took the next class. I think we started with NAMI Basics, and then we went to NAMI Family to Family. And from there, it's like, we need to be more involved in this. We have this lived experience that we can share with others. And she says everyday people, but if it was everyday people, everybody would do it. It's not. It takes special people to do these things. But that being said, you don't have to be special. We can equip you to be special and do these things. And we've just stuck with it. And that led me then to be placed on the board by Rick as a search committee to hire the current director, Dr. Sherry Vaughn. And we hired Sherry, and then I became the vice president of the board, and then I became the president of the board, and I just stepped off this last year and became the immediate past president. So we're still very involved with NAMI. And it was just this cycle of progression, and we keep doing that. And every chance we get, we tell people about NAMI, try to point them in that direction, because I truly think without NAMI and without the supports we've gotten, we wouldn't have Maddie here today.
Mm-hmm. How hard was it to walk through the door to that first session or that first class? Because in some ways that's a very public thing to do. This isn't your private provider's office where people go into offices all the time. This is kind of a public thing. Other people are going to see you in, especially the group sessions. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the challenge with families like yours stepping out and seeking help, because aren't you supposed to be able to handle, the perception, aren't you supposed to be able to handle these things behind your own closed doors and your own four walls? Right. How difficult was that to go into that as a family?
For me, probably not as bad, because I was being pushed a little bit to do it. But what I've realized, there are people that struggle to come through that door. And what people have to understand, when you come to that NAMI environment, that is a safe place. The stories we share there stay there, but they help us help each other. And they help us to understand how to help our relatives and our family members and our friends that are living with mental health issues.
What was the most eye-opening thing for you?
I think really to hear that other people have gone through the exact same thing I have, but even probably more so was to hear other people talk about how they'd gone through it and they didn't have their loved one anymore. And that's tough. When you're sitting in a class and somebody tells you that we did all these things and we still didn't make it, but they're there still advocating so that somebody else will make it, that's eye-opening. You see those things, you see the impact that NAMI has on them, has on the people around them. That's huge, and you can't get that anywhere else.
Did it cause a shift for you? Because in some of the lows that Maddie has described, you talked about, you made a couple comments. I would think that it would be instinct to kind of just rush in and grab and try to do the forcing that you were talking about, to kind of shake you and say, come on, Madison, look at this, look what's happening.
Yeah. It's a slow progression, because you still want to do that. And initially you at some points have to do that. Madison, we got to get off the couch. We got to take a shower. We got to change clothes. We got to do these kind of things. And so you do push a little bit, but you realize very quickly how far you can push and when you can push, because there are times you can push and it completely sets them back even further than they were. So it was hard not to always rush in, but we still would reach out and say, hey, we're here to help. What do you need? And it wasn't always perfect, and it's not going to be perfect, and we're still going to have our failure points. So
you're nodding over here a lot when you said sometimes we had to push, and sometimes it wasn't always the best. What was that push and pull that you had with your family throughout all of this?
It was just when I'd hear what they were saying. I could hear, and I knew deep down in my heart, I haven't been taking showers lately. I haven't been getting out of bed when I should. I haven't been going to work sometimes. And for them to go, Madison, come on, you really need to. I'm like, yes, I know. Stop, I know. And it's almost, I knew that I was supposed to be doing it, but I didn't know how, and I was too afraid to ask for help because I didn't want to be seen as the sick one again. Oh, she's going through another depressive episode.
In these ups and downs, who finally did? Did you finally, in all of these downs, reach the point where you did reach out and ask for help, or were there some times where you had to where they had to kind of pull you in that direction?
Most of the time, because of how much I do a lot of self-education on this stuff, I read a lot of books, I read a lot of news articles, statistics things. I am better able to do it now, but definitely more towards the beginning. There was a point in time where they did just basically have to grab me by the shoulders and push me into the shower and push me out the door to my appointments. But once I finally got there, I was surrounded by amazing mental health professionals, and they would tell you, this isn't something you need to be worried about. This isn't something you need to be ashamed about. We're here to help you fix this. And that's finally when I was like, okay, I can let my guard down. That's really what it was, is my guard was up because I was afraid of disappointing my family. I was afraid of disappointing my friends, and I didn't want to do that. And finally realizing, hey, no disappointment. We just want to help. That really was what opened those doors for me.
What is your message to other families who have a loved one like you who is struggling and is sometimes going through those ups and downs, or maybe is in a down right now?
I think the most important message that I want to send out there is they don't need your criticism, they need your love. They need your understanding. They need you to be there and be non-critical of them to the point where they can come out and say, hey, I've been having a depressive episode. Because 9 times out of 10, the family's going to go, oh, we know. But it's empowering the person with the mental illness to be a part of their care actively. You're going to have better rates of getting better if you're actively participating in your care. So just be vigilant, but be loving, be understanding, because it's not something that they can control.
Do you have any suggestions for those who maybe don't have the family support that you have? Because it's obvious the family support was vital for you.
Yes.
They were always there. They had your back. They had their eyes on you.
Regular mental health check-ins. I think doctors' offices normally do it, but if not, there are screening services with Mental Health America online that you can actually go do, and it will give you a depression rating and an anxiety rating, and just doing those regularly, really stay on top of your own. The other thing that I've been doing recently that's been phenomenal in helping me track, oh, I'm about to hit a low, is mood tracking. I journal every morning and every night, and when I wake up in the morning, I color code my journal with how I'm feeling that day. And it's been really easy to see, oh, I had a string of red days, and then I feel that drop hitting, and I could see it coming. So then I knew, hey, here are some tools that I can use to try and get myself out of this.
I imagine too that, if you don't have family around you or nearby, maybe you don't feel like you have any close friends, there are support groups out there as well. So how can we get past that fear? If you're someone who's like, but I really don't feel like I have anybody around me that can have my back, that can be those eyes that your parents were for you, how do you get past that fear to walk into a group of strangers and let them have your back?
See, I think one of a really important thing that I'd like to point out is sometimes you don't even have to walk through the door. You can sit online and go to an online support group. There are definitely places that do Zoom meetings for mental health like this. So if you're finding it fear of, I don't want people to go out there and see my face, look for an online meeting that you can go to and still get the support, but your face doesn't have to be on the screen. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. Just being there, 9 times out of 10, you're going to walk out with more information and feeling better about what you're going through.
There's always somebody there that's going to have your back.
Always.
What would you say to other families, David, who have a loved one who's going through a time like this?
Just understand that they want the help as much as you want to help them. They just may not know how to ask. Watch them, listen to them, look at them, and see them. That's the biggest thing. Make sure that they're heard. And then I would say also through the whole process, get support for yourself as you're supporting your family member. And there are family groups where you can go and talk to other family members that are going through the same things you are. And you could realize that you're not alone, and it makes it easier to walk this out with someone else. If you don't have family, you find that group. Unfortunately, we live in a world where there are a lot of broken families, and people don't have the support, and they don't have a family around them, so they have to reach out. So just reach out and understand that you're not alone. Understand that there is help out there, and there are people that are willing to walk this journey with you.
I appreciate too that you guys have not presented this through rose-colored glasses, even though I love the heart frames that you have on your glasses. But that it's not necessarily easy. Like you said, it's not, the first up and down, 3-4 months, things were back great. Gee, wasn't that an easy thing? Everything's fixed forever. That it's not necessarily that cut and dried.
Yes, it definitely isn't. There'll be up and downs that I go through probably for the rest of my life. And it's just something that I need to be vigilant on so that when I see that coming, I can get myself help before it gets to the point where I start self-medicating or, God forbid, take my own life. We want to keep people just centered and being within themselves. I would love for no one to have to go through any of this, but unfortunately you do.
Well, it's also great to see that never give up, and there's always hope.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Amazing story. Thank you both for sharing. Appreciate it. If at first, a few things here. If you've heard anything here that has you feeling like you're in crisis and need help immediately, that 988 hotline is there. Please reach out and call right away. They can get you where you need to be. NAMI Kansas, NAMI in your area is there for you. Those links are online. I know here locally, as you both mentioned, we have Astra Behavioral Health and Wellness. So reach out to that. We have a lot of those resources and links on WIBW.com/hearmesee me. And listen, look, listen, reach out, support each other, because you will always find someone who's there to say, we hear you, we see you.
Yes.